Folks, and welcome to Paddock Partial post-qualifying edition for the 2019 Italian Grand Prix. That was a session, and not necessarily for the right reasons, but certainly the right results if you are a Ferrari fan. But let's not give it all away too early if you haven't seen it. Let's start, as we always start, with Q1. Now, a number of drivers going into Q1 already had grid penalties for engine changes. One of them starting the race with that engine penalty, Max Verstappen. He qualified in P20, and we're going to hear from him on exactly what happened to a very disrupted session. P19, Robert Kubica said the car felt better in free practice 3, but did a complete 180 into qualifying. Felt terrible on low fuel. He's hoping for rain on Sunday, as is George Russell in P18. He's annoyed, though, that he had to abort his second lap. A car ahead of him ran wide through the second chicane, dragging gravel onto the track and causing a lack of grip for him through there. Actually, that happened to a lot of people throughout the session. P17, Sergio Perez. Red flag came out in the session because his engine went bang again, second weekend in a row. And they don't have a new one to put in either. So if it is irretrievable, he's going to have to put the older spec power unit in and potentially dial it down as he did in Spa. P16, Romain Grosjean. Hugely disappointed because the car felt good, in fact felt great in free practice 3, but it's lacking top speed, he says, in comparison to his teammate. Feels great in the corners, they're running the same wing levels, so why he's lacking down the straight in comparison to his teammate, he has no answer for. We're going to hear from somebody who does have an answer, however, for a very disappointing session, Max Verstappen, P20, with some big issues. You're going to be starting from the back anyway, but is it safe or fair to say that session didn't exactly go to plan?
No, I wanted to go out, of course, and try to do one lap, see how competitive we were in Q1, but out of turn 2 I lost power, so I had to abort.
Is that a worry, an issue for tomorrow?
No, it shouldn't be. It's always in qualifying where we seem to have this problem, but it's not the same as what I've had before. It's a different cause, apparently, so it's what it is, but in the race it should be fine.
A lot of people hoping for rain tomorrow. Do you think, with or without rain, you've got a car capable of firing you up towards the podium?
No, and the dry will be really tough because the first few laps they will pull away massively. So then on a track which is, there are not many corners and you're not really gaining a lot of lap time per lap, it's really hard to close that gap. So in the wet, I think the differences will be a bit bigger normally, and then you can definitely come to the front. So I definitely hope it's wet tomorrow. But anyway, even if it's dry, we'll try to make a good race out of it. So
that was how the grid was set. Well, not the grid, the fastest times anyway were set for P20 to P16, which moved us into Q2. Now, interesting running in Q2. A number of drivers playing the game. Pierre Gasly, P15, Lando Norris, P14, Danik Fiat, P13, then it's Magnussen 12, Giovinazzi 11. Pierre Gasly in P15 said he did what he needed to do. Ultimately had fun in Q1, was 9th, car felt great and fast. Ran the same tyres into Q2, didn't matter, he's starting from the back anyway, so he'd done his job. P14, Lando Norris, we're going to hear from him because he did a really good job as well. Has a penalty, doesn't really need to worry about where he qualified. Although he did, because he had a few little boxes that needed ticking. P13, Danik Fiat, not happy at all, said the team didn't stick to the run plan, no idea why, but shouldn't be in 13th place. P12, Kevin Magnussen, happy to make it to Q2, and his teammate went out in Q1, but he is hoping for cooler temperatures in the race tomorrow, because those are the temperatures that seem to suit the car. They're also the temperatures that suited the car in practice on Friday. A little bit of wet, a little bit of cold, should play into the hands of the Haas, and that's what Kevin is hoping for. Giovinazzi in P11, 2,000th of a second off from getting into Q3. Can't be that disappointed, gets the free choice of strategy going into the race. We're going to hear, though, from Lando Norris, as we said, a number of boxes that needed ticking, and he ticked them all. Is that part of the plan?
Yes. I only had a few things I needed to do or complete. 2 of them were qualify ahead of Gasly, qualify ahead of Verstappen, not go out in Q1, and give Carlos a nice tow down to turn 1 on his Q2 lap. So that was everything we planned, and I managed to do it all nicely. So as far as I'm concerned, it's job done, job completed, and I'll be starting as high up as I can from the back of the grid.
So all of those boxes ticked. What does the box for tomorrow look like?
Points would be nice. Points would be nice. That's the aim for me, but it's still a lot of cars to overtake. Cars which can be a bit quicker than us in the straight sometimes. So I don't know, we've tended to have some better race day results than we did in qualifying. So getting through turn 1, having a clean race, having an enjoyable race, and hopefully seeing the checkered flag.
So that is how the positions 20 to 10, or 11 anyway, were set, which took us into, here we go, Q3. Right, where to start with this? Let's start at the start. Kimi Raikkonen crashed at Parabolica, went off backwards into the barrier. He's okay, just disappointed really, as the car had good potential for qualifying. What followed then was a red flag period, followed up by a little time period for which all the drivers could get around the track to start their flying laps. Easy, right? Best racing drivers in the world. There was a point, I think after the second chicane, where you sort of felt you guys need to pick up the pace here or you're not going to make it to the line. As it was, only Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz made it to the line in time to start their flying lap, which meant that Lewis Hamilton, 5 World Championships, Sebastian Vettel, 4 World Championships, Valtteri Bottas, race winner, Daniel Ricciardo, race winner, Hülkenberg, Albon, Stroll, none of them made it. In the words of Alex Albon, it was a shambles. And I don't think you can put it any fairer than that. They had discussed it in the driver briefing. In the Formula 3 qualifying session yesterday, exactly the same thing happened. The session was red flagged and a number of penalties were handed out to the drivers for driving unnecessarily slowly. That last few moments of qualifying in Formula 1 is now under investigation. Whether the grid will be set as it finished, heaven only knows. But for the moment, fans had let their disapproval known. It was a bit silly, let's be honest. P9, Lance Stroll. P8, Alex Albon. P7, Carlos Sainz. We're going to hear from him. P6, Nico Hülkenberg. P5, Daniel Ricciardo. P4, Sebastian Vettel. I think we'll throw a few of the guys in. We will hear from Carlos Sainz. We'll hear from him separately. But let's hear from Nico Hülkenberg. He was good talking about the situation and the fact that it was discussed in the driver briefing. Let's talk to Alex Albon because he was fairly strong about it as well. And we're going to talk to Sebastian Vettel because in the post-session little melee drivers interviews that you may have seen on TV, I know there was some suggestions that perhaps Ferrari were playing the game because Charles already had P1. So we're going to hear from Sebastian Vettel because he can actually answer those criticisms and those barely veiled accusations against Ferrari. So we'll hear from them and then we'll come and listen to the top 3. Sound good? Cool. All right. Hey, Carlos. Well, you were the only one that seemed to get that absolutely bang on.
Yeah, unfortunate that the pace was not quite there to get the Renaults, also without the tow, which is worth half a second around here. That's why we are all looking a bit racy out there in the outlaps. Or unracy, I don't know how to say it. But
yeah, there are a lot of words flying around at the moment.
Yeah. Anyway, I knew my margins to the flag. I knew there were people that hadn't completed laps because of the red flag of Raikkonen. So I said, okay, if anyone's going, I know if I cross the line 2-3 seconds to the flag, no one behind me is going to complete the lap. So I prefer to go by myself than wait till someone wants to go.
Was it discussed during the drivers' briefing? Because obviously we had the F3 race and the same kind of thing happened. Loads of penalties were handed out.
So just as we were discussing it yesterday, the F3 happened. We did discuss it in the meeting, but we didn't watch F3 because we were in the drivers' briefing. We can see a trend developing across Formula 1, across different categories, which is creating difficult and dangerous situations and a bit not nice to see, at least in my opinion. The only problem is that the solution is not easy. It's not an easy one. There's many ideas flying around in drivers' meeting, but all those ideas still lead us into the same problem, that still the same problem will happen. So I think you need to give us time because the solution is not as simple as it might look from the outside. And when a tow gives you half a second and the midfield is within a tenth, you always prefer that half a second unless you cannot go across the start-finish.
I mean, people are talking about obviously, a delta lap time, that kind of thing. But I guess if you're out there, you're always going to want to position yourself accordingly.
Exactly. That's it. Even if you have a delta, no one's going to want to go first. So even the guy who goes first with a delta, I think still it's going to create a very similar problem.
One lap quali?
Again, sorry?
One lap quali? Back to that?
I was a big fan of Super Bowl back in the day. I remember when I was 10 years old, Super Bowl for me was, as a spectator, to have full attention on one driver, everyone, millions of people looking at you while you are doing a qualifying lap, knowing that if you do a mistake, everyone's going to see it. You have one chance, that's it. I'm a big fan of that. Personally, as a driver, I would like it, but Q1, Q2, Q3 is working really well.
Except for when it doesn't.
Except for when it doesn't. We will not see this problem in Singapore. It's just places where slipstream, like in Monza, counts more than half a second.
I mean, you say that, but through the final sector in Singapore, everyone's slowing down through those final couple of corners, trying to get a jump down the straight.
But that's different. There you're trying to get a big gap to make sure you're not in dirty air. Here you're trying to get a 3-4 second gap, to have all that slipstream pushing you along the straight. Don't worry, in Singapore we will not have this kind of issue, but places like Monza and Spa, it was always going to happen.
That was rush hour at its best, at its finest.
I mean, you say finest. The fans didn't sound very happy. It was a bit of a confusing time, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I think, very specific to Monza and those, towing games. It's just so powerful here and free lap time on the straight, so no one wants to be the first car out. Everyone wants that tow, and it's kind of detrimental, but obviously it was too much now, and people were tripping over each other, kind of unsafe at certain moments too, so I'm sure this will be talked over again.
Was it discussed in driver briefing last night? Because obviously everything that happened in the F3 qualifying, and they all got loads of penalties thrown out for that.
It was kind of discussed. Michael would say they will look at it, but there is no rules for that, and it has never been this extreme, so not sure what is going to happen, but we'll see, I guess.
What was that?
A shamble. Just frustrating. I'm sure it looked silly on TV, and it felt silly in the car as well. Just the first lap in Q3 was actually pretty good. I mean, I think we're maybe not with the top two, but we were fighting in between Danny and Seb and Danny. But red flag, and then the chaos started. Yeah, just frustrating.
What was that?
I don't know, to be honest. I thought we had spoken about it, but yeah, I definitely listened to what we thought or what we intended to do. I think it was clear what will happen in the last bit of qualifying. I think we were foreseeing exactly what happened, but we weren't doing what we were supposed to do, and that's why it was a mess, and we didn't get, I didn't get a run in the end, so not happy with that, but obviously a good day for the team, which in this country, in Italy, is important. But as I said, not entirely happy, because I thought it was clear what we communicated beforehand.
And that's in the driver's briefing with Michael the other night, was discussed between everybody?
No, it's just between us, just internal, so our team.
Okay. Some suggestions from the guys in the top three. There may have been a bit of game playing going on potentially with Charles already in P1. None of that?
What do you mean?
I believe they suggested potentially trying to slow the field down to stop everybody getting across the line, but there was none of that at play.
Not from my side. I was the one trying to indicate, get out of the way, because it was clear that I should be the one second in the second run, getting a tow, because I was the first one in the first run. People were slowing down, Charles was slowing down, and then in the end I didn't get across the line, nor did I have a good tow, so not a good outcome.
So there you go, some interesting stuff from all of them, and as Sebastian said, look, made no sense for them to try and slow the field down. Seb was the one who was going to get the tow. He'd given Charles the tow for his first run. It was now Charles' turn to give Seb a tow, so of course Seb was always going to try and slot in behind. Interesting stuff from Carlos Sainz though. He loved the one lap, the super pole. On a track like this, well, in fact, for Formula One, is it an idea for the future? There's already rumours about a qualifying race. I think that's a great idea, to be honest. I think it would be really exciting. But that one lap qualifying was always thrilling. If it rained halfway through qualifying, and the guys in that second half had to have a slower lap because it was raining, brilliant, so be it. Always good, and as Carlos said, all that focus on one driver, one lap, one chance, nail the lap, nail the apexes, true test of man and machine. I think it'd be quite good fun. Anyway, the session showed us that there there is a possible question there to be answered. What happens in the future? Only time will tell. But I think everybody can admit that was not optimal. Unless you're a Ferrari fan, because Charles Leclerc is on pole ahead of the two Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. He's just on fire at the moment, is Charles. Did a great job. Could his teammate have had the pole? Had he been able to give the toe that time round? Ultimately, we'll never know, because what happened, happened. As it is, though, it is a Ferrari driver on pole here in Monza to the raptures of the Tifosi. And it's Charles Leclerc who won last time out in Spa.
It felt amazing when I came out of the car and hear the cheers and see them crazy in the grandstand, so that feels good. On the other hand, it has been a very messy qualifying session in Q3. A shame for Seb, which I think had the potential to do first or second, and I think we deserve to be 1-2 today. I think we had the pace, even though Mercedes was very, very quick, and it would have been very, very close, but yeah, it's been a big mess. I don't really understand in which situation we're finding ourselves after the second corner. There were one Renault and one McLaren, I think, that was blocking the way, left and right, and we couldn't overtake them. We knew that we were tight on time, so then we tried to do the possible, but we couldn't do one more lap time.
This is it, because obviously Seb was relying on you for the toe for that second lap, having you had that favour returned earlier on in the session. What were the team telling you on the radio? What were you telling the team at that part of the quali?
Well, to be completely honest, Seb overtook me after turn 2 with all the mess, because I think he was aware we were tight on timing, and then I was just trying to find the best toe because he had overtook me, and before the last corner they asked me in the radio, you can overtake Seb if you want, so I did, but then of course it was too tight for me and for him, so no lap times.
Got a good car underneath you though. You're coming into the Italian Grand Prix as a pole sitter. How hopeful are you?
Well, I think the race pace looked quite strong in FP2, not as strong as Mercedes, but the gap is smaller compared to what it was in Spa. So yeah, we'll see. Toe and DRS is very important here, so I hope we'll be able to make a big enough gap in the first 3 laps to then don't see them again.
That was a bit of a mess, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't great, but it is what it is. I enjoyed qualifying as I was a little bit unlucky to have, well, we're all unlucky in many scenarios, but I got Kimi come off in front of me. And I was like on a decent lap. I think me and Valtteri were quite close on our lap time delta, but yeah, I lost easily half a tenth by having to lift because I didn't know if I was going to hit him for a second. But anyways, we're there. We've split the Ferraris, which is good, so we can have a good race tomorrow.
Can you, crucially, keep them within DRS range over those opening laps of the race tomorrow? Stop them from flying away and have a fight?
I don't know. We'll see. I definitely think we can keep up with them. Whether or not we can close the gap and overtake them, time will tell. But it's going to have to push them to the point of their tyres. His tyres drop off the cliff, maybe, or something like that. But it's a long way down to turn 1, so maybe there's an opportunity to.
For sure, a bit of a mess. I'm sure everyone would have liked to see us, finishing the qualifying and getting those last few laps and so on, and every driver would have liked it. So it's a shame. It's just cars bunching up, and I was at the back and couldn't really proceed anywhere. There were cars side by side, so there was nowhere to go really, and I was stuck, and then the time ran out. So that was it. Hopefully we can learn something from it, but mainly annoying because in the first run I had a yellow flag in the last corner with a Kimi spin, so had to lift off. So definitely felt like lost the pole position there.
What's the radio chatter like on a lap like that, where you're all jostling around? Are they telling you where to go, what to look for, or is it frustration on your part?
Yeah, they're just really communicating about the time, how much we have margin, and we have certain references, in which type of corner it's 1 minute and so on. But yeah, pretty quickly after turn 2, when things started to go too slow, we noticed we were unsafe, and they told me to try and proceed, but there was nowhere where to go, and I knew it was going to be too late, although I was trying to get to the line as quickly as possible.
So that is your lot from Paddock Pass, that is your lot from qualifying here in Monza. Yes, it was a bit silly. And we don't know yet whether the grid will look the way we think it's going to look. Engine penalties still to play out. Crashed cars to be repaired. A Sergio Perez engine damaged car to be repaired, potentially with a new power unit in it. And what on earth happens to the drivers who played silly sausages in that last session. Who knows? But that last lap is under investigation, and Michael Massey and the FIA, who we heard from Nico Hülkenberg, had discussed it in driver briefing, had talked about it in driver briefing. I can imagine there will be some strong words to be had to those drivers overnight. One wonders what the grid will look like on Sunday and whether we will get that wet race as promised. It looks at the moment, according to Steve, who knows a lot about Italy, that the weather forecast is looking like we'll get storms, rain showers in the morning, potentially drying out for the race in the afternoon. Cannot wait. The Italian Grand Prix at Monza is always a joy. Join us for the race. For now, though, from us, that was your lot.